Welcome to another episode of the Positively Insane Podcast with your host and spirit guide, Kevin Alexander.
That felt really weird. Listening to that for the first time with somebody else in the room. Today I got my very first guest ever. We're both
so sensual. We're both
We're both a little bit high. We partook in some of that jazz cabbage, the devil's lettuce. You know what I mean? So it might get a little bit goofy. But tonight I got my very first guest ever. It's a guy I've known for a little while. He's been a long-term listener from the very beginning. He was the first person ever to express any interest of being on the show, so it made sense to have him for a couple of reasons. Let me drink some water first, and I'll tell you why. I've been wanting somebody on the show for a long time, but I'm really picky about who it was going to be, because there's a lot of people who have asked to be on, and I think they would all be awesome people, but everything that they would talk about specifically, it would be a very specialized episode where they would get into detail about probably some specific part of their life, whether it's depression or drug use or homelessness or whatever. And I didn't want my very first guest to be, I guess a specialist in whatever topic we were going to discuss. I wanted to be.
Well, I'm definitely a specialist in whatever we talk about.
Well, that's exactly the thing. I know that you and I were a lot alike in a lot of ways. I could tell from the very first time we hung out and shit that we were just two unique, like-minded people.
Blew your mind.
And I knew that we would talk about pretty much anything that came to mind, and I wanted it to be kind of somewhat of a Joe Rogan-esque, type show where we're just talking about whatever. There's no forced conversation, no forced topics. It's just smoke a little weed and run with it. And that's what I wanted my first guest spot to be like, because that sets the tone for what people can expect in future episodes, and I want them to expect a lot of that type of thing. When I have someone on, it's just going to be a free-form conversation for the most part, and we may get into, detailed specific aspects of, someone's life or whatever, but that wasn't necessarily the goal beforehand, and then, sometimes pepper in other people who have a very specific topic they want to talk about. So I guess I should introduce you. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I was trying to figure it out before I came over here.
Not a lot of people do.
The first thing that went through my mind is like Kottschade. I'm not.
I get a lot of Kottschade.
See, so I'll let you introduce yourself so I can hear it.
Well, my name's Thomas Kottschade.
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 I never would have gotten that. Never.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to tell me a little bit about the origins if you know that.
I guess it's Russian.
So that makes a little sense.
It's mainly Russian, I guess. That's what my father told me. I don't know the guy very much, but won't get into that.
Fuck, I got some serious
stories. It's also German, I guess, for God's gift. So that's cool. Always a nice touch.
Right?
Nice touch to tell people, I guess.
See, one of the things, my nephew is part native. His dad was native, and the girl I'm currently talking to right now, she's also native. And like we were discussing before the podcast, that I get into, I'm a big fan of history, civilization, especially the history of civilization and human culture for the most part, pretty much every aspect of it. And one of the things that fascinates me a lot is, the heritage and culture that a lot of races seem to have that I don't have, the native culture and heritage and stuff like that. So
that native culture, I've never gotten depth in it or anything, but native culture, it's definitely an interesting topic to talk about in any form, because there's so many different what's the word to put point of origin.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so many different tribes and different cultured tribes,
and they're all a little bit different too than because they span across continents, and but my whole interest in it is because I grew up in a family that, our roots didn't trace back very far in our lineage. I knew who my grandfather was, and by association, I know the names of most of my great grandparents. But beyond that, my personal heritage has been a complete mystery to me, and so I've kind of pieced together some of it, and I found that at least 50% of my ancestors from the last 100 years or so came from Denmark, or not Denmark, yeah, Denmark, and I found that super fascinating because I've always liked Vikings and the whole Viking culture, and so the idea that some of my ancestors may have been Vikings from Denmark or Norway or something is pretty legit.
And now living in Minnesota too.
Exactly, it's like it's a weird thing.
Nordic County.
But so I anytime I hear somebody who's got somewhat of a unusual name, I'm always curious where it came from. So I'm always I like to dig deep into that type of stuff especially when I'm talking to somebody who have a lot of similar interests and shit like that. So I kind of like to know.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely looked it up multiple times. I've never gotten any result on any internet, and I'm not gonna pay fucking
that's the thing.
Money to find out where I came from.
That's the thing.
I mean, I don't believe in that. I'll ask my grandma, and my grandpa.
Eventually, I'll definitely do the DNA test because that's how like fascinated I am in it, and I'm real curious. But yeah, other than that, like it's something that I don't have $100-$200 to pay right now for it, and I'm not that interested that I'm going to spend money on it right now. But definitely in the future for sure. But shit, yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, even I guess they got that blood test or that DNA test.
Yeah.
You swab your mouth and you find out like how much percentage of one.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
probably do
like,
that at some point.
That's like at least $200, right?
Yeah, the best one is $200. You can do the one for 90 or 99, but it's not as accurate. And if you're gonna pay $100, you might as well pay $200 for the accurate one.
Pay for what you get.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm a hard believer on pay for what you get.
100%.
Sure.
The older I get, for sure, because I used to always just buy the cheapest shit.
Yep.
And then
cheapest is the best way to go. More money in your pocket,
Yep.
but then all of a sudden realizing.
But as I get
a
older,
week later, it's gonna fall apart.
Yeah,
so you never want that.
Especially when you for me, and this kind of takes me to a topic that I've been wanting to talk a lot about, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. Is work in general, and the job that I have. I don't ever say the name of it just because I say a lot of shit on the podcast that could potentially get me fired. But at the same time, it's a job. See, I work in the fast food industry, and I'm a kitchen closer. I work really hard. I do a really good job, and in the past, I have stepped up, and I've worked a lot of shifts, to cover people who were quitting and walking out and calling in sick. There was like a 26-day stretch where I didn't have a single day off this summer, and so I stepped up and I filled that role, and I tried to be a team player and help the store out. And it got taken advantage of to the point where I worked a week or a month straight with no days off, and then when I started getting days off, it would maybe be once a week. And I'm a kind of person who my personal time is very important to me because I want to do stuff like this podcast. I need a couple of days to forget about work, so when I go back to work, I can deal with the bullshit basically. And I forgot why I started talking about this, but a firm believer in getting what you pay for, and so I approach my work. I work really hard. I put in a significant effort for that much money that I get each hour, and it's minimum wage, so I don't get a lot. So when I bust my ass, what money I do get, it's very important to me what I spend it on, and if it's something that I really enjoy or believe in or really want, I'm going to spend a little bit more money to get the quality one. So, I'm getting my value back because, this is currency that it basically it's just a financial number for how many hours of your life that you've spent to get this item. And so I definitely believe in paying what you get for.
It's your owner.
What's that?
It's your owner.
Exactly. And
money nowadays, that's pretty much, we're slaves to money.
And everyone, and that's another thing.
That's another topic.
Yeah, like I'm a
slave to money
for sure, 100%. And I've always been of the mindset that I work. What's up? I've always been of the mindset that I work to live, I don't live to work, and money has never been that important to me. As long as I have enough for my essentials and have a little bit extra, for whatever, I'm cool with that. So I only need enough to pay my rent, my internet, and have a few $100s left for whatever. And so like I have drawn this line in the sand at work where, because I walked out after that month of no days off. I walked out I was like, screw this place. I walked out the back door and I didn't talk to him for 3 weeks. And then after 3 weeks, it's like, I'll come back if you guys only give me, I want 4 days a week. And I want 3 days off every week. And these are the hours I want to work. And that's what I'm sticking to. And they agreed to it. But they keep having problems with other people not showing up and quitting and stuff. So they're trying to take advantage and have me come in.
Yeah, and they always try to put that on you. And they're all like, oh, it's your responsibility. Come in and fill for them because you work here and
exactly.
all that.
Well, I'll just throw a random name out there. When John doesn't show up to his shift, that's not my fault, and if I don't want to come in to cover that, I shouldn't have to feel guilty about it because John's the one that didn't show up to his shift, not me.
Right, you got that day off for a reason. You got stuff planned for that day off.
And even if
you'd like to do what you got planned. Even if you got
I don't have plans, man, and they all know that I don't have a life, 'cause I'm very open about it. My social life is Facebook and basically this podcast. And so they think because I don't have kids or, I'm not doing anything that I should, of course I would want to come in and cover all these extra shifts and shit like that. It's like, no, man, me just chilling, watching YouTube all day long, not worrying about shit, that's my life, man. That to me is just as important as you not coming in because you have kids or something like that. And, I personally don't have kids. I would love to have kids, but I don't have kids, so I take advantage of that. I can do a lot of shit that people can't do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't let you guys know. I got 2 little ones.
No, I knew that, but yeah, I suppose.
I can see your point of view. A couple of years ago, I just wanted to do whatever and everything.
Well, see,
but now all I want to do is make sure that these kids are healthy.
Exactly.
And
I would be the exact same way. Let me rephrase that. Like, I don't have kids because I don't. It's not because I don't want kids. I just don't have them yet. And so I'm able to take advantage of that lifestyle. But I definitely want kids. I think I'd be a really good dad. And I'm at a point now, like when in my early 20s, I wouldn't have been ready for it. I just wasn't. I know you kind of have to adapt to it, if you want to be a good parent. And the good parents do that at whatever age.
I've been a parent for a couple of years, and I'm still learning.
Oh,
sure. I'm 20 years old, and I'm a parent of 2. And I still don't know what the hell I'm doing.
And I'm obviously not a parent, but I have a lot of friends who are, and I'll tell you that just like being, an adult in general, it's a constant learning process. By the time they're 18, you'll still be learning new things about parenting.
That's just life, though. I mean,
sure.
Life is just a total learning curve. I mean, from the day you're born to the day you die, I mean, you're always learning something new. And whether it's to play golf or to draw a picture,
especially
you're always learning something.
For sure, especially in the area that I'm talking about, specifically just as personal growth, because that's something I know you're actually trying to do it too, because you're trying to start your own business and stuff like that. But just in order to, there's that cliched old saying that I've always held on to, is like, in order to become something you've never been, you first have to do something you've never done. And that includes a lot of putting yourself in new scenarios and learning about who you are and making personal growth. And that's something that I'll be 33 next month. And I'm learning all these things that I wish I had known as a teenager. Like I'm in my early 30s and I'm learning all these things, and it's like this working, this fast food job. This is the first job that I've actually put effort into doing a good job. I pride myself in the fact that I do a good job. Doesn't matter that it's a burger joint to me. It matters that I have a certain job that I have to do and I'm good at it. And, I'm a valuable asset to the team. But, at the same time, I still have my own mental health to deal with. And because, if you've listened to the podcast, for years I went down a really dark path of just drugs and depression and alcohol for a while. Because I didn't have a focus in my life. I was in a relationship between like 19 and 25, and that was my whole adult life, and then that just completely disappeared, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And so for a long time, I always said, fuck it. I quit jobs, I moved to different states, I ran away from all my problems and tried to start over new. I lived in 7 different states over those 7 years, and I lived in and out of my car. I've been homeless as shit for a while, and so I'm at a point now in my life where for the first time in a long time I have my own place, and I have a job, and I show up every day, and I work really hard, and I go home and I fucking completely don't even think about that place anymore. It's what I have to do to keep moving forward and keep keep myself from sliding back into basically the life I lived for, almost 8 years. And so that mindset of always trying to improve upon yourself in one way or another, and no matter what it is, I believe in baby steps for sure. Baby steps, as long as you're committed to them, and you don't use baby steps as an excuse to not do anything hard, like a lot of people do. A lot of people who want to lose weight or do something like fucking baby steps. Sometimes you just gotta dive head first into that bitch.
Yeah, and honestly, this is my favorite topic is life. Is that everybody's got their different life, and everybody's got their different opinion on everything. For sure. And one thing I like to talk to you about is that me and you have we have the same ideology, fairly. There's a lot of similarities, yeah. But then we also have a lot of things that we are different about. For sure. And that's what I like talking about, is because
we're the kind of people that like to talk about those things, because we can, without getting, there are too many people who can't talk about differing opinions without getting mad and shit.
Right, and we were just talking about this earlier today. It's 2017. Yep. You say one thing to one person, they get offended.
100%. It's ridiculous.
You have to literally watch everything you say and what you say and how you say it to people, or else they'll get upset, cry, and you're hurting their goddamn feelings.
And nowadays, one of the reasons why I get so passionate about the outrage culture in general and political correctness and social justice warriors is nowadays you can't say anything without offending somebody, like you just said, for sure. Somebody's always getting offended. But they want to take it a step further. Now that you have offended them, they want to provide additional consequences for the things that you have said. Like they will go.
They need to know that that they're mad.
Not just that, but they also need to ruin a part of your life. They will go out of your way to try and get you fired from your job, just because you said or posted something online that they thought was quote unquote racist or homophobic or whatever. Like, it doesn't even matter. The fact
and
that
that's where the whole too many kids and too many people nowadays have too much time on their hands.
Way too much time.
Do whatever and just bash other people's life to make their life feel better.
They all have way too much time for sure, and because I believe it's very firmly rooted in the upbringing, because I came up in this generation. I'm one of the older members of the millennial generation. I remember when the internet fucking first came online, in '95. But I've been a part of this generation of, especially in the '80s and '90s, of coddling your children. It's all about their self-esteem everyone gets a participation trophy, you know, and all this, you know, everyone needs therapy, everyone needs medication.
You lose. That's bottom line.
And because
I'm gonna, in being a parent nowadays and watching how people raise their kids in the way that kids are getting raised, I know exactly what I'm not doing.
Exactly, right?
That's for sure. I mean, my kids are gonna know that if they do something wrong, they did something wrong.
For sure.
They're gonna get disciplined.
100%. I completely agree with you. And the problem that I have is we now live in a culture where you will be demonized for your actions if somebody else deems them offensive. You know, when it comes to
they could sit there and do the same thing, but if they want to look good, even this, if they doing the same thing, and they're out in public, they'll make you look bad.
Yep.
To make themselves look better.
100%.
And even if you're doing there's just like these riots and protests and everything, people are just joining the bandwagon.
Yeah, there's a core amount of people who probably firmly believe in the cause, and then you have outside of that a lot of people who just want to jump on the bandwagon to be a part of the team.
Yep.
You know, hey, I
want to be a part of something.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying, and I want to be a part of it because I want my voice to be heard too. Because I grew up where, you know, I was told that everything I have to say is important. And, you know, then as I get older, I have opinions and thoughts, and I realize, or I feel that everyone should have to listen to them because I haven't matured to the point where I realize that nobody should have to listen to me. You can't force people to listen to you just because you're mad. And there are so many people, like, you can't even say that. You know, I was watching the Joe Rogan Experience, and he had, I don't know if you know who Ben Shapiro is. I had never heard of him before he was on the show, but... And I
can't say I have.
I don't completely agree with all of his views, but he's about my age, and he's a young Jewish right wing, or not. I shouldn't say right wing, but he's just a young Jewish conservative. He calls himself a conservative, but he's very articulate in the things that he says, and he's very logical about what he's saying, and he doesn't attack anybody, and he calmly and very, you know, he says this shit in a manner that you can understand it. And as long as you're thinking critically, you can accept it, you know, without being mad at him. But he says a lot of things that people disagree with, particularly one that I know of is, you know, he considers transgendered people to have a mental illness. And, man, until he said that, I had thought that myself many times. I just didn't have the guts to say it first. But I do... I don't judge transgender people in any way whatsoever, but I can't help but think a lot of that is a mental illness. At least some of it.
My main thing, and I've been interested in this stuff since I was a little kid. It all comes down to neurology, I believe. It all comes down to what chemicals and what part of your brain you are using.
Yeah.
We're only using 10% of our brain due to the other 90% doing all the other involuntary.
Yeah, for sure.
Everything, the cells and...
There's a lot of shit going on in there.
Cell regeneration and... I mean, even our organs are working themselves without us knowing.
That's a totally different totally different subject, but it's pretty... Because we're both pretty high, so we're going to jump around from shit.
I mean that's pretty crazy. That all comes down to, like, the whole fact that it all comes down to what part of your brain is getting used and who you are.
Yeah.
My main belief is that your brain is shaped to where it's pretty much like a thumbprint of you, and the way your brain works and what parts of your brain, and you, like, there are certain parts of your brain that everybody has, like the cerebellum, the manubrium, or whatever you can call it.
I don't know anything about it.
What? Yeah, right? Fucking cranium, that's all I know.
Right.
But the brain, it's a thumbprint of you. You got your certain parts or whatever, but there's certain parts of your brain that other people don't use.
Yep.
And that's why you are the way you are. That's why you work the way you work.
100%. That definitely has a big impact, and I think there's I believe that the form of a human being is done in two different scenarios. You have your genetic makeup, which to a certain extent will make you. I don't know if it'll make you who you are, but it definitely puts
Right. It won't make you who you are.
It definitely puts confines onto the type of person.
Then let me guess your other one
uh,
is experience.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of it too is the things that you go through in life that form you. So you've got this basic blueprint, and then your life also kind of puts the clay molding around that blueprint. And so you're definitely, I think those two things are the two key players into why you are who you are. And
okay, so this goes down to what I used to think growing up. I have a buddy that lives in Prior Lake right now, and me and him used to talk real in depth about just life and everything.
Yeah.
And I threw this idea at him about life, and just kind of like a metaphor almost is there's a core, per se, like a ruby or sapphire or whatever, and then you got this rock around it. And it's just when you were born, it's a square slab. And then throughout life, your experiences, what choices you make, the certain cuts are done to the rock.
Yep.
And then by the time you are dead, your experience and everything, it's a sculpture of your life.
Yep.
Whatever you are in the center, whatever you choose, whatever you want, or whatever, but your experience and your life journey is that sculpture right there.
100%.
And so just throughout life, whatever choices you make, it's going to affect who you are at the end.
100%. And the magic in knowing that your experience throughout life, is really the brushstroke of the universe as it's painting who you are. Your experiences, you're being carved out of this square slab. The magic in knowing that is also knowing that you don't have to let your experience make you who you are. As long as you learn from your experience, you can then go about...
But then there leads you to the choice. The choice of whether you want your experiences to define you, or you want your experiences to... I mean, either way, your experiences are going to define you.
100%, because you do have to make a choice now.
You have to make the choice of whether you want to be who you have been and what you want to be.
You can control how your experience defines you.
Yep.
That's really what it is. And a lot of people struggle with that. A person in my life, I'll say it, I ain't afraid to say it. My own father, he's like 50, 51, I can't remember for sure, but he's a person that I believe has never been able to grasp that concept. He is who he is, and that's never going to change. And that's so difficult for me to, I think because I grew up with that.
And that's a lot like my father. I mean, my older brother, he's okay with the fact. He's blown past the fact many years ago. But I still don't get it. I mean, I have 2 kids now. I'd never leave them for the world.
Right. And
I've made mistakes in life. I ain't afraid to admit that. I'm man enough to admit that.
Oh, everyone for sure. Me, 100%. Nobody's perfect.
But with those mistakes, I learned the fact that I would never leave my kids for anything in the world again.
Let me ask you this, because it brings me to a really good point that I was just about to make. I feel, in my opinion, like you, because you want to be a good dad, but on top of that, you also, know what that's like. And because you know what that's like, you wouldn't want to put your kids through that same shit. And I feel like because my dad is who he is, he didn't teach me how to be the right, how to be a good...
and that's kind of where I'm at. It still bothers me. I'm still struggling with this whole concept and everything. I mean, I'm 20 years old. My brother's, like I said, blown past the fact, but I still struggle with it all the time because, I mean, I got 2 kids now. I don't see how you could do it. I don't know
Well,
how
yeah, 'cause-
anybody can just leave their kids like that.
And to me, one of the things that if you've never had kids, it's hard to understand. And now I don't have kids.
Oh, yeah.
But I have been around enough young children, like my niece, my nephew, my nephews, and my best friend's children. I lived with them for a time, and I really grew to look at them like, from a parental viewpoint, and it changed my outlook on a lot of things. And when you have kids or you live around kids, you're forced to face the fact that what you do, you literally are a part of this child's experience that they're being formed out of. So the things that you do or don't do could make a significant impact on them. And once you become a parent, or you've spent enough time with kids, and you're not stupid, and you pay attention to these things and think about them, you realize that everything you do is essentially forming them in one way or another. And I don't know how anybody who's had that experience could just turn and walk away from it unless they were intimidated by it. You know what I mean? Because
it's definitely it's very intimidating. I mean,
you gotta
my
be a
girlfriend,
strong person,
she's an amazing woman. I don't know how she does what she does, to be honest. She does a lot for the kids, and I mean, watching that, and
I like seeing that, especially in the younger people, man.
Not knowing that just knowing that I'm not doing as good as she is. It sucks. I mean,
But do you try?
I mean, I definitely try. I definitely try.
That's the thing. Here's where I never judge anybody for anything, because I make a ton of mistakes, and I'm far from perfect, and everything I'm currently doing is just an attempt to try and be better. So I feel there are many things in my life where I fall short of where I would like to be, and so as long as you can acknowledge that, that's always the first step. You acknowledge that you are not where you'd like to be. So that's the first step.
I mean, is any parent?
If you are,
if you are, you're lying to yourself. That's for damn sure.
If you're where you think you need to be as a parent, you need to seriously reevaluate that, because you're probably wrong. There's probably something else you could have done better. But at the same time, you can't blame yourself for everything. Like my mom was, she's still a really good mom, but her mom was a hardcore drug addict and alcoholic, and in and out of prison. Like my mom was raised in foster care, I want to say, until she was 8 years old. And so she didn't have a blueprint at all. All she knew was that she had to do different than her mom. And all the bad things that her mom did, my mom was like, okay, if I don't do these, hopefully that'll make, I will have done everything I could have done to have been the best parent I could be.
But that's where a lot of choices come in, because I've seen a lot of instances where, like, a lot of parents that they grew up in foster homes or whatever, but then they end up just being the same repeat of their parent.
Yep. Because a lot of people don't have the strength to break the cycle. And my mom was one of those people who did. And I believe I get my strength to do or try to do. I believe I get it from her, because my dad clearly doesn't have it. He clearly doesn't even.
I've definitely met your dad.
Yeah, I know you have for sure.
Yeah, he's not a good guy.
All of his good, if you look at him and you see positive shit, it's fake. Unless
it's a facade.
Unless you think just like him, and there's another person, I won't say her name, but we all know the person I'm talking about. Yeah. He seems to have developed a bond with her that he couldn't get with anybody else in the family. But what he doesn't seem to realize is it's all strictly based, and I'm going to say it, on their meth use together. Mm-hmm. And my dad, is pretty much, the whole family has left him behind. None of us really associate with him that much, especially me. And he gravitates toward this I don't know what you would call it, his surrogate daughter. I feel like he views her as
the daughter he wishes he had.
Exactly.
Per se.
And
I mean, she does exactly what he does, and
100%.
They're exactly alike, and that's why he clings to her so much. Is because
and to me,
it's what he always wanted
to me, it's weird and kind of creepy. When I'm thinking about it, like it really is. For a number, it's not creepy because like the age difference or anything. It's just creepy knowing who my dad is, and I've never seen that particular, kind of behavior from him. This is the first time he's been abandoned. I hate to use the word abandoned, but that's how he looks at it. He views it as we abandoned him, because we couldn't accept the things he was doing because it was hurting the family. It was hurting all of us to a certain degree, so that's why we all left it and backed away from it, because it wasn't healthy for us. And he views that as abandonment. And so this is the first time I've ever seen him. And I don't know, it's a dark it's a dark road. I plan on getting into on another podcast, but I don't think it ends well for him. And that's something.
I mean, I've definitely, like I said, I've met your father, and I've seen patterns like that, and that's what I've learned. I read patterns a lot in people.
Yeah, me too.
And his pattern has been the same since I first met him, and that was years ago, probably.
Yeah, 2 years tops.
And he's been doing the same thing. He's got that same look that I've seen in many other people, and it's the only way it's gonna end is not the good way, and
and that's not even me going into because really all he has right now in his mind, because he refuses to change, and that's what we won't accept. If he changed and made effort, I don't know if at this point, but up until very recently, I was willing to accept that if he put in some kind of effort to just show that he cared enough to change the behaviors that were making us all want to turn away from him. And he just would not, and he refuses to. And so because of that, all he has is his mom, my grandma. And he has been a mama's boy since day one. And he relies on her so much, and she is in her late 70s, and her health is not good. She's on antidepressants because of him, and when she kicks the bucket, he's going to have nothing. Everything he's ever had, is going to be gone. And
then he's still not going to realize that he's done anything wrong.
I think at that point, if I'm going to be 100% honest, me and my brother both feel like he's going to kill himself.
Damn.
And I struggle with it because I wish I could have some sort of relationship with my dad, but I know after almost 33 years of experience that he can't have a relationship that he doesn't manipulate. And he would want to pull me back into he would want me to grab, like he's a black hole. And he sucks you in, and he keeps you there. I mean, I moved in with the family after I moved back up here from Arkansas, I moved in with the family with the expectation that I could pay, we got about 6 minutes before we start over. I've been paying attention.
I mean, we could definitely keep it going.
I moved back in with the family trying to get back on my feet. I thought they were going to charge me, maybe $200 a month, rent or something, because everyone was living there. And they're like, no, you got to pay $500 a month for this tiny little, it was in the basement, right? And it was an older house. And this was a room that the old water cistern used to be in. So it was smaller than a jail cell. And that was the space that they gave me for $500 a month. And not only that, I got a job and we started, we all started working because we were all trying to pitch in. Literally every single payday, then the amount that I owed would go up $100. Because the whole house is behind, and we're all trying to help pitch in to catch it up. Next payday it'll be fine, and then the payday after that it was some more bullshit because he was spending money on his drugs and shit like that. He would say he was doing something and he would lie about it, but it wasn't just him. Other people did too, but I care enough about those family members that I'm not gonna throw all that shit out on the podcast. Because I've kind of done that in the past, and I've gotten a lot of people butthurt with some shit I said on Facebook. And I'm at a point right now where
And that's where it comes again to be in 2017. You say anything, anybody's gonna get butthurt.
Well, I mean, I said some pretty messed up shit at one point. When I was in the Salvation Army, my stepmom and my sister went to Las Vegas, and because of the mind frame I was in at the darkest time of my life, I totally, I was angry at them for not getting me out of the situation that I had put myself into. It was a direct result of my poor decision making, and I was suffering the consequences of it, which I desperately needed to do. Like, that was something I needed to do to learn and get to the state get to the position that I'm at now. But at the time, I was very mad about it. And I posted this big rant on Facebook calling them out. And they're very private people about their, personal life. And I blew the whistle on a bunch of stuff that didn't need to be said because I was in a bad state of mind. And, I've never been fully forgiven for that. Like, they still associate with me on a certain level. But for the most part, they're all like, yeah, Kevin's okay in small doses, but keep him the fuck away from me after a couple of days. It's like, he starts saying shit that pisses me off. But I don't know how you feeling. You want to go for another one? Or otherwise,
we could definitely keep going for some more. I mean,
we can wrap it up.
Talk about fucking anything, to be honest.
We can wrap it up, or we can do another one if you're feeling it. But
I definitely gotta take a piss. But
right.
We could definitely do another one.
Well, I'm gonna hit the end button on this one, and
all right.
If you're still paying attention,
you guys stick around. You'll definitely hear us talk some more bullshit. So
there'll be a part 2. Peace.
Part 2.